Hello there, peoples. It's been a while, and I've been very sick. I can finally speak again. So now I will be tormenting you all with the sound of my voice. And this video might be a little, we'll just say late. It's time to look at Silent Hill F. This game hurts for many reasons, and I could talk about it for a very long time, but I'm trying to keep this as brief as possible. I'll be covering the controversy around the game, though it's less controversy and more just people bitching about stupid shit. So, let's start bitching about stupid shit. But, before I do that, remember to like and subscribe. I know putting this at the beginning of the video is, not the greatest, but, most of you fuckers don't make it to the end, so help a little guy out. And do comment. Every sarcastic remark does help. On to the video. The primary question is this a Silent Hill game? Well, it doesn't take place in Silent Hill, so technically no. But it does have the spirit of Silent Hill all over the place, especially when it comes to the story and how it is presented. Everything else is not very much like Silent Hill. I can understand wanting to make something new and different from a dead series, but this doesn't really make any sense to me. And yes, there have been other entries in the series that don't necessarily take place in Silent Hill. I don't really consider 4 to be a Silent Hill game either. That being said, this does remind me of another dead series that's been having a little bit of a revival here recently. You know, Fatal Frame? Alright. It's time for the most important part. Is the game, part of the game, actually fun? Well? No. I could sit here and complain about the stamina bar, the breakable weapons. So I will. The stamina bar wouldn't be too much of an issue if the enemies in this game weren't spongy as hell. You smack the metaphors posing as an enemy, then wait for the stamina to recharge, as you take hit after hit because this bitch is slower than economic recovery. Hinako is not powerful. And that isn't necessarily a bad thing, especially when it comes to the story and how it all adds up. Actually thinking about it, it makes even less sense. Whatever. The game is just not very fun. And unfortunately, unlike the other Silent Hill games, you can't exactly run past the enemies. You are forced to fight a lot of these fuckers. And sometimes, too often in fact, near the end of the game, you are forced to fight all of these assholes in very tight spaces, which means you're fighting with the camera just as much as everything else. And they also usually come in groups, which means that you're gonna get your ass kicked a little bit. Then again, I'm just kinda shitty at this game, so could just be me. To me, the developers don't seem to be the most competent when it comes to making a fun combat system, and I get the feeling that they rushed through this quite a bit. And then there are the breakable weapons, which are nice in concept, but in practice these are a pain in the ass. I mean, these things are more flimsy than the social fabric of the United States. How is that even fucking possible? And this wouldn't be so bad if you could actually run away from the enemies, instead of having to fight everything you come across. And then when you get to the boss battles, you have basically nothing left. Fun. And the whole resource management is part of survival horror, and it's supposed to put you on edge, make you think about whether you want to actually beat the shit out of that mannequin or not. Unfortunately, you don't have the choice here. So the whole management system adds to the frustration instead of the horror. Which is not something that you want. And all of this could have been fixed if you could just run away and not have to worry about the metaphors posing as enemies in the game. It would have been much more enjoyable. And the enemies in this game are pretty dumb and rather spongy. And most importantly, they never feel like a threat, but just another hurdle you need to hop before getting to the story of the game. And you might find this hard to believe, but that's not very good in a, game. The Silent Hill 2 remake forced you into some combat sections, but at least you had a gun, and your melee weapons wouldn't break. How did Bloober outdo these guys when it comes to combat? It's just kinda sad, really. Alright, so, at this point it might seem like I didn't like the game, but believe it or not, I did. I don't know why I did, but I did. Oh, and I forgot to mention the puzzles. I didn't care for them. Not that they were bad, they were just kind of the same. Also, some of them were a bit harder than you would think, and then others were just brain dead. Not very well balanced, I suppose. Also, the game is very linear. I very much doubt you would ever get lost, or need to look at a map. Alright, that's enough bitching. Let's talk about something positive. The environment. Well, maybe not that positive. The town in this game is most definitely creepy. That being said, there is something to be said about modern cities and western towns being a better place for these types of horror games. When I think of small town Japan, I think of tiny wooden houses with paper doors. When I think of small towns in the US, I think of meth and serial killers hiding inside tunnels they dug out under their houses to use as an escape route when the heat finally catches up to them. That might seem awfully specific, but that's what I think. And when it comes to Silent Hill, there are often times when you go inside a building and then it gets exponentially bigger than it looks. When this happens in this game, my suspension of disbelief is instantly broken. It's like, nah man, that tiny house is not that big. But in something like Silent Hill 2, you're like, okay, yeah, this might be possible. And then you keep going down the stairs for like half a mile and then you realize, oh no, there's something fucked here. And the biggest nut shot in this game is that the other world is fucking boring and not scary. What the hell's going on here? Where's my barbed wire? Where are the little kids with the knives? Where's the rust? If there's not a severe risk of tetanus, I don't think it can legally be called a Silent Hill game. But as a consolation prize, you do get a shit ton of spider lilies. Scary. The flower bed's coming for you. Better run. It was like they're trying to keep the horror a little more subtle, like typical Japanese media. Which is understandable, but it should go without saying, this isn't very Silent Hilly. Actually, back to the other world for a second. This place overstays its welcome, much like the Labyrinth did in the Silent Hill 2 remake. So I guess they do have something in common. And every time this bitch got knocked out, I thought, oh god, I have to go back to that shithole shrine? Yippee. So basically this section can be boiled down to, town is cool and interesting, otherworld is boring and shitty. The game does look good technically speaking, but it's missing something that made the classics more interesting. Okay, this time I really will be positive. Probably. The music for the game was handled by the usual suspect, in addition to some others. I have to say that the theme, Mayoi Uta, reminds me very much of Meiko Kaji songs, as well as the general theme of the story. So, if you're a Meiko Kaji enjoyer, you might find yourself taking a little trip to Ebisugauka, or whatever the fuck this place is called. I like the music. It has hints of Silent Hill in it while sounding more traditional Japanesey. It's good shit. Now onto the things that Silent Hill games are well known for and sucked off repeatedly for. The story. I want to talk about this with as many spoilers as I can get across, so if you have not played this game and are interested in it, in my opinion, the story kinda makes up for everything else wrong with the game. That being said, this doesn't do anything revolutionary. If you want a dark and depressing game for the dark and depressing part of the year, this will be a perfect match for you. But, wait for it to be on sale. I would say $50 would be a pretty decent price. Okay, now it's time to talk about this uplifting game. So, we start out in the town of Ebi-something-oka, with Hinako being pissed off at her parents. Her father is an alcoholic, and considering the era the game takes place in, I don't really have to imagine why. Her mother is a weak-willed, submissive woman that won't go against her man. This causes Hinako to take on an aggressive and abrasive personality, considering the time period. For some unknown reason, her sister is faceless, and in the diary it is scratched out. Something about her betraying Hinako and getting married. That doesn't really add up, but hey, you know. To each their own psychosis, I suppose. This is a good start to a Silent Hill game. We can already tell that things are going to be fucked. The types of enemies in this game are not exactly subtle on what they represent in the mind of Hinako. If you are wondering what they all mean, I question your capacity to think. These creatures represent Hinako's inability to deal with societal pressures or to become one with society, submit and become a good, functioning part of society. In this case, that resentment is aimed at marriage and the entirety of being a woman. You only exist to reproduce. This is a feminist's perspective, so naturally it is warped and only a half-truth. That being said, the developers seem to be taking a more nuanced approach. And if you puked hearing that word, I understand, but let me try to bumble my way through this explanation. And to do so, I unfortunately have to start at the very end of the game. So if you don't want to know what all of this meant, get the hell out of here right now. I think there might be a titty monster birthing acid pods and mannequins behind you. Okay, so in the end, we come to find out that our little Hinako is a pill-popping schizo. Which wouldn't be so bad until you realize that the entire ending part of the game was you systematically killing everybody that was attending your wedding. This includes your friends and family. It's pretty grim. That being said, it does leave an impact, or it did on me. My reaction was simply sitting there thinking, what the fuck? I can't say I didn't expect something like this to happen, but all the same, it got to me. Looking back earlier in the game, there are hints everywhere, and the reaction that Hinako has during some of the incidents is rather concerning. You just killed your friends and you have no reaction whatsoever. If the red flags were any bigger, I would think I was in the Soviet Union. What does all of this tell us about Hinako? Well, she's fucked in the head, which is a good thing, because if the main character wasn't fucked in the head, I would seriously question the status of is this or isn't this a Silent Hill game. Now that I have that out of the way, is this game woke or a bastion of progressive ideas like so many on the internet claim it to be? No. If you want to argue that this is a feminist game, I could understand why. But thinking about it, I come to the conclusion that Hinako is not a role model. I know. A pill-popping psycho that isn't considered a hero in this day and age is most definitely a strange one. And I really just don't see how it's an endorsement of anything that's really progressive. At the core of it, this is just a human story that isn't very optimistic, and it shows that we, as people, can be assholes and psychotic. And if you've worked retail, you know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't, don't work retail. After witnessing the ending of the game, Hinako strikes me as being animus possessed, or the inner masculine part of her psyche is completely in control, which makes her more aggressive, opinionated, and resistant towards societal demands. That is if you like a little bit of young in your Silent Hill reviews. Alright, I think I've gone on long enough. Let's wrap this up. Is this a good Silent Hill game? No. Is this a good game? No. Do I recommend you go out and play this game? Yes. That might sound strange in a day and age where mediocre means bad and not average. I think this should be experienced. If you don't feel like dropping the cash on this puppy, I have some good news for you. This was recently released on GOG, which means if you are cunning enough to search anywhere on the internet for Silent Hill F, that download, you can enjoy this for the nice low price of free $99. If you are a good little boy, I would suggest that you hold off until the game is around $40 or $50. That is a good price in my mind. If you care to wait a few years, it'll be even cheaper, so don't feel rushed to play this game. But keep it in the stack of things you want to play one day. I like the story, and found the combat to be a complete pain in the ass. Until next time, people, keep killing the demons inside and be sure to stay safe in these cold, dark times.